So Harmonix launched their Kickstarter, Zach, for Amplitude on Monday. That felt weird.
They sure did.
Sticking your name right in the middle of the sentence. So Zach, Harmonix launched their Amplitude Kickstarter on Monday. And as the only other person in the office who's excited about Amplitude, I decided to pull you in to talk about this.
Yeah, so we need to find a new place to work.
Exactly. Right? We need to work with only Amplitude. Harmonix is probably the only other place where everyone cares about Amplitude.
But we could start our own company, and the first question we ask potential employees is, did you play
Frequency and or Amplitude?
Right. I think that would weed out a lot of the shots.
Exactly.
Yeah, they did launch that Kickstarter. That was surprising. So I loved Frequency and I loved Amplitude. I think that Frequency was, like, I played Parappa, but Frequency was really the first beat matching game that I got super into. Yeah, because I'm a guy who loves music, but is not a musician at all. Like, my brain is not wired in that way, and so assembling those songs on Frequency and then on Amplitude, like it hit that spot for me.
Something about playing different instruments in the same song. So it's funny because I've been playing rhythm games my whole life. I've been playing DDR for like a decade, but I remember Amplitude being the first rhythm game I ever played that wasn't developed in Japan. It was the first Western-made rhythm game, and I'm sure it and Frequency were probably some of the first that ever had even something you could even call close to popularity. But it's such a different vibe too. Like, we were rewatching the opening cutscene of Frequency this morning, and it's like this ridiculous cyberpunk aesthetic. Nobody doesn't have goggles on their forehead, and everyone's laser DJs putting CDs in sideways to machines. Yeah, it's a very different vibe.
Like Angelina Jolie from Hackers was in that movie somewhere, or in that
in the background.
Somewhere. Yeah. And like, given the tone of the Harmonix guys, please, like, do another version of that. But set in that time at that club.
Don't you dare. The cutscene has to be more live action, people who are probably Harmonix employees dressed up in ridiculous
100%.
costumes.
I'm sure that all those people were Harmonix employees.
We could probably, get someone to go through and pinpoint them all. But yeah, it was really interesting to me because I didn't think that we would ever get another Amplitude or Frequency for a couple of reasons. One of which is I feel like Rock Band Blitz was probably the closest we were ever going to get to an Amplitude sequel. I was like, well, that's the closest they can do, and I was satisfied by that a little bit, so I'm happy. But this is pretty authentic. This is licensed, like, this is officially an Amplitude game, which is tricky because I guess Sony has the rights to it or something.
I think they published that,
Yeah, I think IGN ran a story about how this started with an IM conversation between Harmonix's John Drake and Sony's Adam Boyes, like saying, hey, can we make another Amplitude? Would you be into that?
As someone who's in a room with those two people at DICE, I can totally see that happening.
Very realistic.
In between tons of other bullshit that is nonsense.
Right. Sounds like
and
that.
Adam probably said yes to a different question. Anyway, whatever. We might be getting a new Amplitude game. So yeah, I was not expecting this at all, and when I saw the news, my first reaction was not like, I'm excited about this. It was, this is very strange. Because I felt the same way, that Rock Band Blitz was, oh my god, they're doing Amplitude and Frequency again. This is it, and that game didn't click for me for whatever reason, like those original games did. So why do you think they are doing Amplitude and not doing like Rock Band Blitz too?
I think the Amplitude has a lot of cachet for people. My understanding from talking to like Harmonix PR is that every time they announce a game, people's like, this is bullshit, where's Amplitude 2? So they can kind of be like, here's a thing for the most diehard Harmonix fans ever. I think it's interesting in some ways that this almost gets away from Amplitude 1 more than Rock Band Blitz did, because Amplitude and Frequency were both all licensed music, and from reading the Kickstarter, it sounds like unless they go way over budget and get overfunded, this is going to be all in-house music, no licensed stuff in the traditional sense. So that's going to be interesting to see, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I didn't read that part. I didn't read the Kickstarter super carefully.
Well, I mean, to be fair, a lot of the music in Amplitude and Frequency was Harmonix employees, just like a lot of the music in Guitar Hero was Harmonix employees. So,
and that was one of the big deals. Like back in the day, you had DDR and stuff that have licensed music, but it was music that I had not heard of.
Whereas most of it was, again, one dude named Naoki at Konami making all the music himself under 50 different aliases.
So what is it about Amplitude that you think will make it work more than Rock Band Blitz, or make it different than Rock Band Blitz?
I mean, besides the name, I think it's aesthetically a little bit more interesting. Those two example screenshots that they showed are totally gorgeous. They look like they're taking, they're combining Amplitude's art style with some of the stuff we've seen in the Chroma beta with like the jagged polygonal stuff. It just looks totally dope. Like I'm into that. But for the most part, I think it's just like cachet. Like they're not, it's interesting, they're not positioning it as an Amplitude sequel. They're calling it like an HD version of Amplitude.
Right.
Which is a funny way to message it.
Yeah.
When presumably very few of the songs, if any, will be the same as they were in Amplitude.
And I mean, I think that Amplitude has some cachet among nerds like us.
Totally.
But no one else in this office played it.
Right.
I guarantee that more than half the people who work here have played Rock Band.
Right.
Maybe it's a little bit of a harder sell. But I mean, whatever. Rock Band is like a huge franchise that they need to be super protective of, and maybe this is an opportunity to do something else. I'm sure they've thought about it much more than we have in our 10 minutes of
Right.
But I'm excited.
I am too. Like, it's weird because I feel the same way you do. I think of like a mix of confusion, like, why would they make a Kickstarter just for me?
Yeah,
you know, like
right.
I'm pumped. And
that's like the potential of Kickstarter.
yeah.
Right?
It's selling stuff directly to your super fans. And
Yeah.
I mean, there are already a few thousand people who have backed it,
Yep.
which is interesting. A few thousand other people who remember Amplitude. Just
Yep.
united. We need to go find them and recruit them.
Yep.
And make,
Form our new startup.
yeah, Frequency LLC is what we'll call it.
Yeah. Hopefully we can call it that.
Yeah. For legal reasons.
Yeah.
Well, I am Adam Boyes, and he'll give us
Okay,
permission
great.
to call
Great.
it that. It'll be great.
What was your, so if there was one song from Frequency or Amplitude that you would somehow wish would appear in this game, what would it be?
I think that garbage song from Amplitude is pretty
Cherry
iconic.
Lips.
Cherry Lips.
That's a
It's
solid
just,
jam.
Just because starting that song out and playing that goofy sounding synth, that bump 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 bump
Yep.
bump, like yeah, that's
Really good.
That's like Amplitude 101 for me.
Yeah.
Do you have a pick?
I feel like it should be Crystal Method, maybe.
Sure.
You know, that was a game that was the song a band that started off both of those games. So
Yeah.
a strong connection for that. You know, throw some POD in there too.
Right, of course.
Why not?
Why not? Here come the boys from the south.
Here comes the boom.
Boom.
Ready or not?
Ready or not? I'm not. I've never been ready
No,
for POD.
still not ready.
No, but that'd be a nice little.
That would. So Rock Band Blitz was 2 buttons, right? Whereas Amplitude and
Yes.
Frequency were 3
Yeah.
buttons. Have they said, is the new Amplitude, I mean, it's got to be 3
It's got to be
buttons,
3. And
right?
those example screenshots seem to look like they're 3, and they're doing other interesting things with local multiplayer that look cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe that's the biggest difference. Is I was like, this is embarrassing. I grabbed a DualShock 4 and was watching some Amplitude footage on YouTube and trying to like play along with it. And I was like, you know what? This does feel different from
Yeah.
Rock Band Blitz, because the 2-button thing was kind of their way of getting around having to write note charts for every Rock Band song, like the thousands of songs in the library. But 3 buttons is like, it's a little more complex. I think Blitz tried to compensate for that with different power-ups and objectives like the pinball things and stuff like that. But it's 3 is more of a traditional rhythm game than 2. It's still a small number of notes to hit, but there was something about the balance and Amplitude of hitting these 3-column chains, finishing them off, and then swerving into the next one.
Yeah.
That felt really. They talk in the Kickstarter description about the flow of Amplitude and Frequency and zoning out while you play them.
Yeah.
And I would love to get back into that. That was a great feeling that Rock Band Blitz semi-captured for me.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't quite get the whole like manufacturing of the song feeling like I did.
Yeah.
Well, but I don't know. So it's coming out on PS4 and PS3 if
Yes.
it gets funded. I think it'll get funded. They haven't said anything about Vita, right?
No, all they've said is cross-buy on those 2 systems.
Cross-buy on those 2.
But yeah,
I think it would be awesome on Vita.
I think so too. Although the thing is the shoulder button.
You only have 2 shoulder buttons, right?
Yeah. The default Rock Band Blitz controls were like hitting left on the D-pad and A,
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
which was crazy. I trained myself to do it, but that only worked with 2 buttons. Like a 3-column rhythm game on a system with 2 triggers is a little bit crazy. Although I guess DJ Max Portable kind of did it. Whatever, we'll figure it out.
Have they said anything about Project Morpheus support?
No. Oh my gosh, though. That'd be
Right?
fun. First person driving
Yes.
your, whatever it's called,
Yes,
boom beater.
blaster.
Boom
something.
blaster,
Boom
beat blaster.
Boombox.
Yeah. Really, the takeaway is that they need to hold on to as much early 2000s cyberpunk aesthetic as possible.
Yes.
That's our only advice. I will
Yes.
double my contribution to this project to a whopping $30 if they add that in. That's my guarantee.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.